First, in Africa, we hide behind religion. An African hides behind religion. A black person, being black is a mental thing. You accept truth. You face truth. You have pride in yourself. You take the time to be aware of yourself and your surrounding. But be honest, how many Africans do you know that would take the time to know themselves? How many? Like to purposely know themselves. Obviously, if we were doing that, it would have manifested itself in our environment. And how things are ran. But we don't do that. Instead, we pass this on to so-called religion. And these religions are foreign religions, by the way. It's easier to hide our deceptive behaviors, our cruel behaviors. Sometimes, like, I don't even want to use this word, but I have to. The subhuman way of thinking, because an African is somebody who, a black person is an African that evolved. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a certain geographical location. No. How many black people, how many Africans have you met, let's say in the Western world? You talk about racism that is staring you dead in the eye, and they would deny racism because they think that's what white people want to hear. An African has no problem betraying you based on, their tribe. Tribe means a lot. You could be amongst hostile white environment. You would think you can rely on an African. They would betray you based on their tribe. They will probably help the white people take you down. And generally, this African is very religious. If they are Muslim, they are super Muslim. If they're Christian, nobody beats them at church. An African would sit and argue why it is justified for white policemen to shoot and kill a black person. African would always separate themselves from black people. And I know some people are going to be like, does this make sense? If you live in the Western world, you would understand exactly what I'm saying. And right now, there is a big movement. It's the grassroots movement that is growing slowly. It's called ADOS, ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. I know, like, okay, that doesn't even, some of the things do not make sense, what they are talking about, but they are pointing out how African immigrants that come to the United States, because we all look alike, we all have the same skin color. They said it's detrimental to their movement because Africans are being counted part of them, but the mentality, black identity is a mentality, and Africans don't share that. So black people are looking at you outwardly saying, okay, because you're black, so you're part of the team. Here comes an African immigrant talking, these black people are very lazy, without researching their history, without knowing anything about them, what is going on. But what you fail to realize is whatever happens to a black person, it will happen to you, whether you're from Congo or Wakanda. That's what things are like. Even look at slavery. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Who sold who into slavery? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you the story we were told saying that it was white people that was kidnapping Africans, that wasn't true. That is not true. I can assure you, I can give you an example. Like, I grew up in Sierra Leone. I spent some time there and I witnessed civil war. So for those of you who you probably don't know anything about that country, there was a civil war. There are people getting killed, bad things happening. You weren't aware of it in your country. Even if you were aware of it, you just heard it on the news. So tell me how, if, okay, they could have been easily selling people. They were taking children from the country, taking them away. You weren't aware of that. You don't know what is going on. You know, do you know how many young Sierra Leoneans were adopted by white people, taken out of Sierra Leone, completely out of the continent of Africa? You count all the other African countries. So if slavery was going to happen, that's how they could easily do it. Okay? But in this sense, the slavery, you know, there were Africans who participated, who were making money as well. You go to Ghana. On the coast of Ghana, they have castles there. You go to Anamabo, one of the biggest slave, that place exported more slaves than anywhere in West Africa. You go look at the records between 1700 and 1800, they exported over 800,000 people, 800,000 people only from Anamabo. You're not even, you know, talking about, you know, the other castles. They used to have a castle there called Castle Brew, because the biggest slave trader on the Atlantic, they call it the Atlantic slave trade, his name was Richard Brew. You can look him up. Richard Brew. Richard Brew, his wife was an African. Her name was Ifwa Ansah, who, you know, she was the daughter of, back then they called them the Cabochère, you know, John Coranty. So I'm just giving you the history for you to understand that, you know, we have to face these things, you know, and bring out the reality so that we can move forward as people. Brother Mazi said the Emir of Katongora in northern Nigeria. Oh yes, absolutely. If you look at the wars, that took place in, you know, in the around 1822, you know, Usman Danfodio, the Islamic wars they waged in Nigeria. Do you know how many people were shipped into slavery during that time? It was plenty, you know, tons of people were shipped, all from this religious thing. But I can also tell you another thing, that Africans don't really care about, which is self-pride, begging. If you live in the West, sometimes you would see white people, you would get into arguments with white people, you know, when they tell you about some of the African behaviors. You yourself, you would walk around here in the United States or Canada, in any major city, sometimes it's just embarrassing. You would see an African pretending, wanting people to feel sorry for them, when in reality, nobody feels sorry for you, because Africans don't feel sorry for Africans. So I'm going to share a video here of a Nigerian woman in Canada who was out there begging. You know, she was out there begging, and it looks like this is something that she's been doing for a while, and somebody was irritated by this. They decided to record it, and I think it's great that this individual record this. I'm going to play this video and then analyze it, tell you guys what was, you know, break it down, what was said, what it means, and how she contradicted herself. Give me a minute here. Just bear with me here for a second.
This black bitch out there trying to scam people for money. They get enough money from the government. They get enough money from the government that she still wants it out there trying to be a professional panhandler. No dignity, no self-respect. Let me go and see what she wants. I'm gonna see her, try to tease her a bit. Okay. How much money do you need?
Lord, I need $20 to buy groceries to feed myself.
You need
He's 14 years old.
you need $20? Okay, so what about the government? What, doesn't the government give you money?
They give very little.
Huh?
They give very little.
Doesn't the government give you money?
Yeah, they give very little.
Little?
I have to pay my house rent. I have to pay my fees. At the end of the day, the money remains very little.
Oh, okay. Where you come from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria?
Yeah.
Nigeria? So why are you here for? Why did you leave Nigeria?
I came here to have a good life. I went to school, York University.
Yeah.
I had a job. The job finished. I've not been able to get a new job. Things are very hard for me and my son.
Oh, so you come from Nigeria to Canada to get a good life?
Yes.
To live a good life?
Yes, brother.
Why can't you live a good life in Nigeria?
The economy is very bad.
The economy is bad?
Yeah.
Okay, so why are you, let me ask you a question. Why are you Africans, why are you Africans running from Africa to Europe, to Canada, to America, to live with a white man? Why?
The economy at home is very bad, brother.
Because the economy?
Yeah.
So you mean you people in Africa, you can't run your own economy?
There's a lot of corruption.
Huh? Lots of corruption.
The government
So a lot of corruption. So you guys can't get along with each other. So you run from Africa to Europe to live with the white people because you can't manage your own country. Is that right?
Brother, the government.
I don't understand why you Africans keep running away from Africa to come to live with the white man. Why can't you take care of your own country? Why?
It's very tough. The government is very hard.
Yeah, but I don't agree with. Yeah.
But just told you about the government. The government has to manage the economic policies, but they are not doing so. The government is not doing so.
The government is what?
The government is not managing the economy very well.
Okay. So you're panhandling then, right?
Yes, brother.
I'm not your brother. Okay, I'm not your brother. I'm an American. Okay. So, anyways, have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all saw how that conversation went. The act that the African woman tried to put in front of this guy. And I honestly liked his attitude. I liked his attitude. Yes, this woman said she left Nigeria. Her excuse is, she said the economy is bad. Okay. Now you move to a place where the economy is good. How do you still, you get free money from the government to pay your rent, to buy groceries, and you're still out there begging? No dignity. No dignity. So these are the people that are making the black image in the Western world look bad, make the African image look bad. But people don't want to address this. This begging is a culture, is a deep-seated, rooted culture in African society. And it has everything to do with lack of self-awareness and lack of self-esteem and dignity. What do you, as a person, as a human being, truly think about it as a person? What would it take for you to push yourself in a society where, by the way, you know, this lady, she could get a job just sitting there, watching mentally ill people and get paid for it. She can have her self-dignity and self-worth. But no, she's not going to do that. Instead, what is she doing? Begging. Begging. Where did this start? Back in Africa. Even most of you right now that are watching, if you're in the Western world, you probably have you have people in Africa that you don't like to talk to. Why? Because every time you talk to them, they are begging you. Even myself here on Messenger, do you know how many people constantly beg me? Constantly? They don't even know me from anywhere. It is ridiculous. The American who recorded her, is he black? I'm trying to understand why he denied. Dembo, I would address the person too that recorded it. It's obviously, I think he's black, but I will get to his part as well. And you have to understand, this comes from a place of frustration for many people. Because if you, as a person, you see yourself as a dignified human being, you're willing to do what it takes to uplift yourself out of poverty. So this woman said the government in Nigeria is corrupt, is wicked. Fine. You were able to leave Nigeria. You're in Canada. The economy is good. There is tons of jobs everywhere. I've been to Canada several times, It's a nice, beautiful place. So she comes to Canada. In Canada, as she said, I went to university. For some reason, all these African beggars, somehow they all went to university. They probably went and sat in some class in some little college where they could not pass any of the remedial classes. And then they tell you they went to university, but you don't even know how to fill out an application. This is the problem with African people. An African would rather sell his or her dignity as a human than try to overcome their weaknesses. Because, for example, if you don't know how to fill out applications, hey, learn how to fill it out. If the government is paying for your housing, like free food, like, what do you mean it's little? It's not enough. If you want enough for yourself, go out and do what everybody is doing. You think you're standing out there, people walking by you, you're panhandling, people are happy to see you. I remember one time I was around here. I was walking down the street. I saw a Gambian guy. The guy is homeless, panhandling on the streets. When he saw me, and I could tell that he is Gambian, right away I spoke to him in Mandinka, and he was very embarrassed. And I asked him, what is he doing out there? He's like, oh, brother, things are hard. He's like, can I get $5? I said, I am not going to give you a dime. You do what I do. We cry about the economy back there. Then you come to white people's land, as we call it, where there's tons of jobs. But you rather reduce yourself to this. So that right there, the difference, even like you see black people, someone with a black mentality, that you would see panhandling, they are either mentally sick or on drugs. But this woman, as you can see, she looks like she's normal. You see, when the guy hit him with reality, she sobered up. She dropped that fake cry. like people like to do in Africa. She dropped it right away and started facing reality because she knows what the guy was saying was true. But that guy also, even though he's frustrated, he kept saying, you Africans come and live with the white man. Okay, that land, Canada, that is not origin to Europeans. Europeans came and found Native Americans that lived in Canada. They massacred most of them. Some of them still exist. Canada is not as they are not as nice as they present themselves to be. I mean, of course, they're gonna be calm, but they've killed half of those people and still continue to kill them. You don't hear about them because they are isolated. So people were there. Yes, even though Canada did not practice slavery, how did black people end up there? It was runaway slaves. They were running away, from slavery in the United States, in the Caribbean to Canada. Canada used to be the place for refuge. And most of those black Canadians and even some white criminals were once they taken from Nova Scotia and other places, taken to Freetown, all dumped there. That's how all that happened. So the guy, even though he was angry, trying to completely disconnect himself from the continent of Africa, that's just, it doesn't, to me, he lacks true understanding of who he is as a person. Because no black person in the Americas can disconnect themselves from West Africa, especially. And I've seen many black people here. Yes, they do it. They don't want to accept the Africanness, right? But ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. Would anybody want to associate themselves to a group of people that engage in this? Even us from Africa who were born and raised there, we don't want to claim this sort of people. How many of you probably went on vacation to Africa where people would beg you, shamelessly begging you? Some of them would even go to the length of almost robbing you. I've seen people where people would sit them down and try to shame them. This is pretty much robbery, in begging them, like they would pretend like that woman saying, oh man, they would cry and say, I did not eat. Okay, so you're telling me I've been in Europe 5-10 years. How were you surviving? How were you surviving? Right? So people don't tend to ask those questions. Oh, sorry, excuse me, guys. Let me send this. So when you ask people these questions, they start becoming very, very upset. Very upset. But you see, when you have a black mentality, you can address these things. You can be ashamed of them. I can hear the disgust in that guy's voice. That's why he did not want that woman to claim him as a brother. Some of you have probably gotten into arguments with, like I said, with white people saying these things. You get in an argument, but deep down in your head, you're like, man, they are actually right. So now, not only are they right, they are capturing these things on camera, sharing it around the world. The only people that are in denial about it is African. And now many black people, like I said, they are becoming very open about, not wanting to be a part of the, because They said Africans are detrimental to their progress. Because you look at even, African people that are elected, for example, they become judges. They have powers over matters. You would think they would help, promote it because you're black, considering the history of this country and what is happening continuously. You would think that, okay, as an African, you would be like, oh, I have this power to try to uplift my people. Do you think what they don't do that? They oppress you more than white people. How many of you right now watching me probably have gotten fired from a job because of another African? The African caused you to get fired. How many of you? Mostly you go to jobs, if there's like one or two black people, when they see you, they're excited to see you. An African, if you're African, they would just start frowning. They would show you negative face. They would bring tons of negativity. I've seen people I'm talking about from Gambia, the same place, knowing how difficult things are in the Gambia, how hard it would be for someone to leave that country to get here. But I've seen Gambians help white people voluntarily to take their fellow Gambian down. So that is that African mentality. They are not really black. And yes, somebody can be born in the United States, a black person. That doesn't mean they're necessarily black, because sometimes you meet other black Americans too, who would do that. Who would do that? But I want people to understand the separation here, which is a black way of thinking, thinks about unity, the oneness that we have, not the differences, our similarities. But Africans tend to look for the differences. We look for the differences. And these differences that we project, we don't even understand them. We don't take the time to even read about it. When I say read, I'm not talking about necessarily opening a book. I'm talking about critical thinking. Critical thinking. We're not doing that. That is why the lowest form of humanity, we seem to project that, which is things like this, begging. And people are going to wonder, Abu, why are you talking about this? You cannot just say this is everyone. I want to make it clear. I'm not saying this is everybody. For those of you who don't do it, you're like, yes, Abu, you're right. And also, you can only talk about the devil that you know. I cannot talk about the devil I don't know. I grew up in that society. I love everything about our society. I know sometimes people, when they see me talking, they would say, because some have even read it, Abu, do you hate Gambia? No, I love Gambia. Even if I'm going to come in the next life, I would come back as a Gambian. Despite our, our lack of competence in some areas, we play this guessing game every day. It's what makes us a unique group of people. We keep guessing it, and one day we would get it right. We would bicker, but that doesn't mean there is no love. That's how it should be for all of us as a people. When you see this sort of behavior, we address it. We address it. I've heard even like, let's say when Donald Trump said Africa is a shithole, and people were saying, Oh, Donald Trump should have never said that. You know, like whatever. He can say whatever he wants. But you, as a black person, as an African, what is Africa worth to you? What is blackness or Africanness really worth to you? Like I said, in the last 200 years, it hasn't been that great being African. It hasn't been. If we're not seeing carnage upon carnage like this, and it's like I said, it's not everyone, because there are tons of hardworking Africans all over the world, in Canada. So that's why that guy, some of his comments, if I don't want to really get deep into it, because it's gonna, it's gonna make me upset. It's gonna make me upset. Yeah, Africans they are not running away from Africa to come and live with white people. No, Africans come to America for the same reason that brought Europeans to America, the opportunities. Africans are not the only people that come here. You have to understand that. Like I said, there's a group that they call themselves ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. I've listened to them also talk. I understand their frustration, but what I want to say to my black brothers and sisters in America who are passionate about the politics, you have to realize this. For you to get your objective, you don't have to try to put us down. When you try to put us down, you know what I see? I see the trait of white supremacists. I see you guys trying to copy the negative side of white people. Because I was listening to a man say that African people don't have any heroes. They only know Nelson Mandela. That is not true. Just because that's the only one you know doesn't mean it's the only African hero. So now this is the game that is being played, and these people get upset. They say people from the continent of Africa still like to represent their country. Like if I say I'm from Gambia, some of them, they're like, that makes them upset. Oh, saying that African people are coming here to take their jobs. That is also not true. That is not true. African people, like I said, people from African countries come to the United States, just like the Russians come here, just like the Chinese come here. An African living Africa coming here, if they are not out on the streets begging, depending on the government, who are you to try to tell them they cannot come here? They are not bothering you. No one is bothering you. If I'm from Nigeria, if I'm from Gambia, why do you think I leave my home to come and live in this polar vortex? You see how cold it is outside? Of course, I'm going to represent my country. That's where I'm from. So that's why I say you can be both Black and African. The advantage is to combine the two, but project your Blackness. There's an advantage to be born and raised where we are. There's a sense of pride to it. We have a homeland that is ours. It's not perfect, right? People can call it poor, whatever, but it's ours. It belongs to us. People can take delight in saying, oh, Africans don't have their shit together. Chinese are overrunning them. No. That's not how it works. Just because you see one video, a Chinese is talking crap to an African, that doesn't mean that that's how it is. No, man, we don't get overrun like you are thinking. And unfortunately, a lot of these people, they run into the weak Africans, the ones that don't have self-dignity. So the way I started the video, most people probably think, oh, is Abu taking down Africanness? No. No, you can never run away from that. And you should be proud of it. Okay? We are not perfect, like I said. So is America. So is any place. Yes, economy, like the lady said, the economy might not have worked for her in Nigeria. Even with the corruption and everything, there are some people that economy is working for. Believe that. It is working for some people. In Gambia, with our shortcomings and everything, there are people that this economy is working for. So that's why you have to raise your head high and tall and be proud of who you are. Don't beg anybody. No matter how hard things are, go out there, do what everybody is doing. Because when you are out there, like I said, especially in this social media world, you see what could happen. And I hope a lot of these videos can surface, because these people's faces need to be shown. Let me see here what Tony Sinclair said. Tony Sinclair said, always blaming white people. So over it. We have nothing to do with American black people hating on you, because most of the people I know, if never criticize African people, but I have a lot of black friends. So, okay, Tony, I don't know what you're talking about. I think you actually are misunderstanding everything here. Who says anything about white people? I don't care about what white people think. If it's negative, So you come in here trying to spread your low self-esteem criticism in our circle tells me your level of thinking. People in America, to Tony's type, you would run into them a lot. You see, she said she has black friends. That is cover for being racist. Most of the people that say, I have black friends, be wary of them. I'm telling my brothers and sisters here, Africans especially, I'm telling you how to think in that black mindset, because people don't see you the way you see them. No. And you shouldn't be apologetic about who you are. I'm not saying hate on other people, but you should just love yourself more. This person, Tony, look at the language Tony is using on me. Tony said, I never criticized African people. That tells me Tony is one of those people that does exactly what I'm talking about here. Because when somebody is talking, you see yourself in what they are saying. And Tony, being somebody who lacks self-control, is going to respond to what I'm saying. But brothers and sisters, what that lady is doing, that's something we should definitely run away from. You would get some people who would try to make you feel ashamed about where you come from. But the only way that would work is through your self-dignity, your self-pride, the things you do daily. If you take pride in taking care of yourself, nobody would disrespect you. You don't have to worry about these things. But the reason why I keep coming here trying to build this connect that we have amongst each other, I want to see progress. It's not to criticize. It's not to come here and blame anybody. I don't play the blaming game or complain. Why would I complain about white people? So Tony, some people sometimes they need attention. They want me to talk about white people, but I'm not going to do that. Today, this is about Black people and African, as usual. People, that's what I talk about because that's what I know. Firsthand experience. Firsthand experience. My home is Africa. All the people that I know, I'm talking about know, are all from Africa, from Gambia, from Sierra Leone, wherever. It doesn't mean that I don't know people in the States as well. But every time I come in contact with people, I carry myself with respect and dignity. I don't beg for my survival. This is where Darwinism works. Survival of the fittest. So for instance, so this woman, let's say if what she is saying is true, let's say the government cuts money off, you know, because that's not going to go on forever. Because some of you have this free housing you think is going to go on forever. No, at some point the government is going to come and yank that. The $300-400 you get a month, are you kidding me? Why would you rather sit and collect $400 then you could go work and triple that, make way more than that on your own? But you would rather wait for that every month. I want people that, especially that are watching or coming to watch this later from Africa. If you've never been to the Western world, it's not all rosy as you're presented with it for everybody. When you hear about these big dreams people have, these big dreams, you don't get it from doing what she's doing. Yes, there are possibilities, but only you can make it a possibility. I've seen people do it. You are no different than them. Ask yourself the question, why not me? Or if, let's say, you see other African people who are relying on themselves, they are doing good. Ask yourself, why not me? Why can't I do the same or better? But some of you lack shame. It comes way back from Africa. And me nowadays, I have no problem. I have no problem shaming anybody that begs me on Messenger or on the phone, try to beg me. I do not tolerate it. I do not condone it. It pisses me off. We talk about self-reliance. We talk about how Africa should move forward. How is Africa going to move forward if this begging culture, there is no shame in it? We accept people to come and tell us about everything that is impossible in life. And you just say, oh yeah, it's impossible for this person. But somehow you are able to find a way to survive on your own without begging anybody. Some people would say, oh, you're in the United States. This woman is in Canada. She's still begging on the streets. So there are people, it's not like in Africa, not everybody is a beggar. I want people to understand that. But we do have tons of beggars there. Normal, regular people who they would dress up nice. These people are literal beggars. Literal beggars, that's what they do. No shame in the game. And nobody shames them. And I think people enjoy, they want to feel important also. I think it's grand, like this self-aggrandizing mentality to feel important that somebody's begging you. When people, I can understand if you're down on your luck. If you're down on your luck, yes, you can seek help. We all need help every now and again. But if you are always needing help, you are never helping anyone. You're the one that's always needing help. This is the relationship you would have when you're dealing with most Africans. They would just, in their head, create you as the person that is supposed to get it done for them. I'm telling the truth. So the same energy that you're putting, creating about how I should be rich, you should be putting that into yourself and act on that. Because I have my own dreams. I would keep following those dreams. I would do what makes me happy. So we want things to change, but us as individuals don't want to change. This woman, I bet you in Nigeria, she was still begging. When she was in Nigeria, she was still begging. You know how I know? She looks too comfortable doing it. So if environment means anything, we say, okay, it's a prosperous society. She goes to Canada, she's still begging. So it's no longer about the environment, it's about the individual. You cannot see change if you yourself don't change. The person is, because there are some habits, behaviors like begging and stuff like that, you could actually, grow out of and drop it. If you're in a society where like it's not a big deal there, fine. If that's what you don't respect yourself, you can do that there. But when you move to another society, you should be very, very conscious of what is going on, especially knowing how us as Black Africans, how people look at us. They say we're subhuman, we are not intelligent, we cannot help ourselves. Then you go out there on the streets doing exactly what they say we are. When I say we, it doesn't mean exactly you and I in person, we're out there doing it. No, but she is a representation of all of us, because you heard the guy. He kept saying African, African. He kept repeating that. So this guy, maybe from now on, the nasty attitude that he displayed towards this woman, this is now become a part of who he is. So let's say the next time he meets another Black person from the continent of Africa or Nigeria, who doesn't do this, who's not even like that, his attitude would come out like that towards that person also. And you run into this, you don't understand why these people are this way. Well, it is other Africans, and this is very common. Like I said, it's very, very common amongst Africans. If the begging is not on the streets, it's happening on the phone, in person. And I don't blame the people that beg others that, like you're the one that is playing into the game. You are accepting this. So for us to move on, we have to definitely change. She talked about the government. The people in the government are from our society. The mentality is from the African society there. What do you think this woman would have done if she was part of the government? What do you think she would have done? So this is the problem. Many Africans try to put the blame on the government. The government alone is not the one engaged in corruption. How many of you, how many of you have probably, you know, have dealings with, let's say, even your own relatives? Your own relatives, like you send them money, for instance, to build you a house. I've seen people where their relatives were sending them pictures of other people's house when it's not even, they didn't do what they took the money for. They didn't do it. And then the guy finds out, his money is gone. There's nothing more corrupt than that. That's not the government doing that. This is what people in their, which I'm talking about, within their families doing to each other. If you think in a black way, you wouldn't do that. You would try to be excellent in your dealings with other people. So this is not just the government. This is the daily dealings within African societies. I mean, you cannot change people. Only people can change themselves. Only you as a person can change you. And some people would come and try to be upset about what I say. No, I mean, you don't have to express your anger to me. You either, you either see this as the truth or not. There is no in between. If you're someone who's a beggar, you think what I'm saying about begging is not true. Hey, you can continue doing what you're doing. But that doesn't mean that when those videos come, we wouldn't share them here and talk about it. I know I've talked about a lot of things here. As you know, I don't script things. I come here, I talk about, what I'm thinking at that moment. Things that I remembered, Excuse me. But your dealings for society to prosper, it has to be based in honesty, for instance. Like I remember for most people, most Africans, lying is not a big deal to them. That is not just, so if people in our government are coming in front of us lying, where do you think that lying, they picked it up from? This is not just something that, maybe some black person sat in a library and read it. No. I lived in this society and I live in this society too. Reading a book alone doesn't make you an expert. You have to live it as well. But there are also, lots and lots of very, very honest Africans. I mean, we've seen them, we've read about them, and some of you have met them in person. But we cannot allow the rotten potatoes to destroy the whole bag, destroy all those people's efforts. Despite everything I talk about here, revision in history, I know that we cannot go back and change the past, but it's just a lesson to learn from it. This video is a lesson on what not to do, on things that we need to be conscious about. People are going to treat you the way you present yourself. Seriously. People might say, oh, Gambia, for example, is tiny little country, not very much happening in people's mind. But everybody I meet, they know. They know that I do not back down from talking about Gambia. And those people, and they respect the country because of the way I talk about the country and how passionate I am about everything. You know, wherever you go, there's going to be the good and the bad. The good and the bad. Despite everything I'm talking about here, the corruption, the dishonesty, things would work for some people. It's worked for some people. You know, it's worked. But if we want it to work for a lot more people, we all have to join in shaming this sort of behaviors. And I bet you this woman, she goes to church too. So it's because it's easier to hide behind religion to do this. That doesn't mean that necessarily I'm saying religion is the evil there. No, I'm still focused on the individual, the person. And the guy in the video that was very, he used lots of disparaging remarks, in regards to African. As far as saying, why do you guys come and live in the white man's land? That guy needs to go back and look at history. In the 1400s, we weren't the ones that left West Africa and went to Europe. No, that's not what happened. Read the history. White people left their country. They came uninvited to our territories, uninvited. So if you are Black, go look at your history and find out how you ended up in Canada. It's all documented. It's all documented. So this idea that, Africans, we cannot go to places, that's BS. Because you know what? Everybody can come to Africa, without, but even Indians can come to Africa. But for Africans to travel, especially to white people's country, you have to go through like a crossword puzzle. You have to jump so many hoops. Africans, it seems like people that are born in Africa, we are the wingless humans. If you have an African passport, you cannot just get up and go to many places. That's not how it works for Africans. So for you, do you think that is fair? I don't think that is fair. So if that is happening, we would have to go to the place that would allow us to have those wings and be able to fly and go wherever we need to. That's what's unique about being African and combining your Black mindset. You see where I'm coming here? It doesn't mean when I say is being Black is a good thing. That is in the Western context. But you have to combine your Africanness to it. You want help from a third world country. You're living in one of the richest countries on earth. The poorest ghetto in America, people that live there in the poorest ghettos, they have refrigerator. They mostly probably have cars. They have food, heat, everything, clothing, right? So that means you have a good running start. I'm talking about materially, because I'm talking materially. But if you're mad at an African, somebody from Africa that came and followed their dreams, work hard, and brought their American dream into reality, why would you be upset at that person? That is what is happening now. And people, black people, some of them, I'm not saying all, they would say, oh, these Africans don't want to help us. Help you with what? You know, I mean, this is America. You should be striving on your own. And quite frankly, like, African countries cannot help anybody. We do not have the financial capability to do that. If we did, we would be helping our own people there. You know, simple as that. If we had it, our people wouldn't be crossing, you know, dying in the desert or dying in the sea just to get to Europe. We wouldn't be lined up at American embassies, Canadian embassies. Okay? If we had it, we wouldn't. And I'm not ashamed to say we are financially lacking there. Our economy is not as great like America. But like I said, we are not the only ones coming to America. Chinese people are coming. Didn't they say China has a great economy? But nobody is shaming Chinese people for coming here to uplift themselves. But you notice, go out there on the internet. I hear these Black Americans, people that call themselves Black Americans, saying that, you know, the only people they're complaining about is African people coming here. Only African people. African, Caribbean, like Caribbean people, despite they don't know that Caribbean people are the same people as them. It's the same. They got to the Caribbean through slavery. It is the same people that were engaged in those business. That's why they call it the triangular slave trade. The ships would leave the Gold Coast, maybe, mostly Anamabo because it was the biggest castle. They would leave there, hit Europe, the ports in Liverpool, go to the Caribbean, and then the New World, which is North America. So the business was ran by the same individuals. The same individuals transported the same groups of people from plantation to plantation. If the slaves were being taken from Nigeria, Gold Coast, mostly in the West African coast, how can you say, oh, you know what, I'm no longer the same as that guy, the black guy in Brazil or in Jamaica? No, same thing, same difference. Are you telling me that a lion in Africa, in the wild, free, you'll be afraid of that lion eating you, but you would be in the same cage with a lion in the zoo here that was born here? No, you wouldn't do it because it's the same lion. The DNA is the same. But these people are going to extra length to separate themselves. So Black unity, you can kiss that goodbye. Because first of all, if you are saying you're fighting for political power, for instance, don't you think you should try to be nice to us and convince us to join your group? Because politics, like people say, is about your interests. Just because you're Black doesn't mean that we have similar interests. That's not how life works. It doesn't mean we have similar interests. I mean, I'm like, Gambia is a tiny country. I'm going to keep repeating that. Tiny country where I come from, right? And not everybody there have similar interests. And that's a very small, tiny country. Much more a country with over 300 million people. And The biggest issue that I've noticed that is happening between African immigrant and Black people in America, the biggest issue is Black people in America, when they see you as Black, they are super excited about the Blackness. But you're coming from Africa, like being Black is normal. Everybody around you is Black. You know? Yeah, you acknowledge that, yeah, this person is Black, but that's as far as it goes. But if you live in America as an African immigrant, I would suggest that you take African American history, you know, a semester or two, take it so that you can understand what Black thinking is. So that you can understand. Because what it is like a lot of these people I meet, to them, you go on the internet, you're going to see this also. Anything you say, they invented it. They said people from Africa are jealous of Black people here. That's the saying there. So I'm bringing this to my people's attention so that you can understand where this hostility, you're going to face some hostility out there. You're going to face some hostility. So white supremacists are not the only people you should be worried about. Most of them are even going as far as saying, like, for example, they said Barack Obama is against Black people because his dad is Kenyan, you know, so a Kenyan meaning they want to enslaved. And somebody also said, oh, the Kenyans were, you know, his father is probably holding grudge for slavery. Kenya wasn't part of the transatlantic slave trade. And you know, Black people have to understand, slavery wasn't all over Africa. You know, we have different cultures in Africa. You know, like, for instance, we have Asia. You have Asians. You have Chinese there. You have Japanese, Korean. They look alike, but their languages are not the same. Their foods are not the same. You know, what makes you think we are not the same way? We are unique that way. You know, our cultures are different. Even our looks is different, because the way I look, the way West Africans look, and someone, Kenyans, Ethiopians, is different. You know this. So don't allow people to put you in this little tiny box to say you have to belong to this group. No, you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are. It doesn't mean you are not acknowledging the plight of Blackness, but you had a dream from the time you were little back in Africa. You came here to follow that dream. Your dream wasn't to come here to fight with white people over land. Nah, that wasn't part of your plan. You have a land somewhere. Should Black Americans fight for land? Hey, of course, they are from here. You know, if that's what it's about, I support it. But you cannot say, oh, why should African or Caribbean immigrants come here? Why aren't you talking about the Europeans that come here, the Asians, the Indians? In fact, there is more of those people coming here than us, the Mexicans. If you ask me, there isn't enough Africans coming here. There isn't enough. We need more. I'm talking about the sound ones, not the ones that are going to be begging on the streets. I'm talking about the sound ones, people that are going to learn things and we export it back to Africa. Those type of people. And you know, we have them. Some of you are even watching me as I'm speaking, and you would come and watch me later as well. It doesn't mean that every African is a beggar. And like these people, they would say also, they said, us Africans, we're weak mentally. I'm telling you what I'm hearing. This is no different than white supremacists. They said Obama did not like them because his father is an African immigrant. There is even an actress named Issa Rae. Her parents are from Senegal. They're disparaging her, talking all kind of trash about her, saying she's not American. No, she is American. The law of this land says if you're born here, you're American. Oh, if you're naturalized, I'm a naturalized American citizen. And the people that are saying that, oh, they are bringing foreign blacks here to infiltrate Black American struggle. That's not true. White people didn't bring me here. In fact, I don't know, I did not know any white person strictly African. It's not like, it's not by design, but that's what I grew up with. That's what I know. So you cannot, tell me that, something that I grew up with, something that I know, just because you don't understand it, I have to be ashamed of it. No, I'm not trying to bring you to my culture, and I'm not here to take your job. No. America is open to everyone. The American Constitution say, they accept people to come out here and pursue their dreams and happiness. They've called to the world to send their sick, they're hungry, they're destitute. This is what the American Creed said. Yes, they did also practice slavery, but there is no slavery here. I even heard one idiot say, where were these Africans in the 1700s? They were not planning on coming here. I'm like, this guy is an idiot. Yes, Africans was coming to America in bulk, but in chains. The people you come from. Yes, Africans, we were not planning sitting there coming to America, because in America back then, it was legal for white people to own people that look like us. So do you think it would make sense for you to voluntarily plan a trip to America? No, that doesn't make sense. But America has changed now. It's no longer about that. Now you can pursue your own dreams, and we are entitled to that as well. So the reality of it is, you can call yourself adults or whatever. Black people cannot separate themselves from Africa. Now, it doesn't matter where you're born. Yeah, the black thinking is good, but you cannot separate yourself from Africa. That's why African is hyphenated for a black person, African American. Yes, black people in America, the way black person thinks and the way somebody typically from an African culture, African country thinks is different. And that's not a bad thing. That's normal. Even a European, the way someone that was raised in England, a white European, the way they think, and a white American is different. It's different. That doesn't make it a bad thing. But instead of focusing on the differences and turning it into negativity, how about we focus on our similarities and strengthen that? Instead of creating a narrative, about Africa. I've been saying this for a long time, and I'm going to keep repeating it. You notice most black people in America you meet, when they are around white people, oh, they are from every tribe in Africa. But the moment they come in contact with us, they have every blood in their body. Indian, Irish, everything except African. They do not acknowledge their African side. And, like, to me, it's rather silly. I'm not saying all, but it's done. Like, trust me, it doesn't hurt my feelings if somebody doesn't acknowledge who they are. You might not acknowledge it in front of me, which I don't care about. But guess what? You are who you are. You can't run away from yourself. When you go in front of that mirror every day, you can either love what you're seeing there or hate what you're seeing. But you're the only one that's going to suffer. And many people, many Black people are suffering from that. And that's where the hate is coming from. I'm listening to some of these people talk. It sounds like you're listening to KKKs. Even they say, oh, let's keep it real. Okay, I'm going to keep it real. Look, me, as an immigrant from Africa, I've experienced war. I've experienced a lot of things. It's what made me who I am today as a person. It was planned that way. I wouldn't change it. I can't change it. It's in the past. But hey, that's what life is about. We all go through different experiences, but it's what you make of that experience. You can either only take weaknesses from that experience, or you can take strength. Every day when I wake up, and people should be thinking that way. I've always thought that way. My life is a script that I'm writing. And in that script, I'm the hero. No matter the circumstance, I would fight through it. I would fight through it. It's nothing against anyone, but it's something, me as an individual, the way I see myself. I carry myself that way. And I would never back away from that because you don't approve of it. So many of these people have never stepped foot in an African country. And they keep saying Africa, Africa. If you want to be taken seriously, take the time and learn the names of African countries. That is step one. Understand this country's culture. That's step two. But when you come out, you keep saying Africa, Africa. It just shows how ignorant you are of what you are attempting to take a crack at. So, yeah, you might meet some people who are from African countries who would not challenge you in your fuckery and your buffoonery. I would. This is facts. I would. If you look at it, Black people in America don't have justice. This is a fact, right? Not in large numbers. Majority are living, when you come here from Africa, it's like they're in the condition of an immigrant. They don't have much, right? Then you come here too, you don't have much. You start and you follow your dreams, you make it. So these people start getting mad. They say, oh, the government helps Africans. The government brings Africans here and help them. Maybe they've brought people here from war zones, refugees, but the government only help them to a certain extent. Then they get on their own feet. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to connect with Black Americans who want to connect with Africans, because there is tons of them that are like that. But you will also see a lot of hostility. Because as you know, we've known a lot of even our Gambian brothers who generally tend to live in these black neighborhoods. I know a couple of brothers who were killed in Chicago, Gambian brothers. I've known some that were killed in Alabama. So it looks like the African brothers who are coming, trying to run the streets with their Black American counterparts, the Black American counterparts have no problem killing them that easily. And on top of that, they don't have much, like good things to say. Now they are saying that we shouldn't even come here. There's nothing more hateful than that. Let's keep it real. They are even saying the Jamaicans shouldn't come here. Even though the Jamaicans, how was Jamaica created? Like I said, they brought African people there. These black people that are talking, they were brought here the same exact way. The same exact way. So it is about time for you, that is from that, from the continent, to start thinking straight. People that are positive, that you get along with, spend your time with those people. Spend your energy with those people. Just the same way you avoid a KKK, like you avoid people who are outright racist, right? People who spend their time calling Africans monkeys, subhuman. You don't waste your time and energy on those people. So it's no different. It's no different. I'm telling you, man, the hate is real. The hate is real. It's very real. There is a rapper named 21 Savage, arrested by ICE. They're talking about deporting him. He's from the UK. And I've listened to several programs, and I'm hearing Black Americans calling in or commenting. Man, you should go look this up and find how negative the comments are. The hate is real. They're like, oh yeah, he came to America and copied black culture. He is black. What do you mean he copied black culture? Even, for example, there are black people who get upset that Eminem is a rapper. I mean, because he's white. I mean, the guy practiced it. He's talented. He presented it to the world. And they get mad about that. So 21 Savage, now black people finding, oh, he immigrated here from the UK. Most of us say, oh, deport him. He lied about. Okay, just because you didn't know where he came from doesn't mean he lied. Who cares about where he came from? Everybody in America came from somewhere, unless you're a Native American. But every single individual here came from somewhere, including Donald Trump, the president. Like this guys are saying that, oh, let's say what Nigerians get here in America, he cannot go to Nigeria and get it. Hey, look, you don't have to complain. All you have to do is, you're an American. Like they won't deny you entry into Nigeria. If you're jealous of a Nigerian that came to the United States and you say, oh, I should get the same thing he got in Nigeria, by all means, fly to Nigeria. Fly to Nigeria and do that. But why be upset about a Nigerian brother or sister that came here and transformed their life from rags to riches? It's not like people handed them anything. So now they're making it seem like you, if you're from Africa, you did so well. It's the government that helped you. But if a white European comes here, they do it. Oh, they did it on their own. You see how messed up the thinking is? So who is trying to degrade Africans more than anybody? Even go look at Black American movie series. You know, Black people say white people always put them in inferior positions. Go watch Black American movies, Friday and other stuff like that. African parts is always degrading. Like they put an African saying that we're so dumb. The guy was chewing on a CD. You know, it's like they give you roles that is laughable. Isn't that the same things Black people complain about with white people in America? But it's not okay for white people to do that with Black in general. But when they have the power, we see exactly what they do. It sounds like they admire white supremacists. They just don't have the power to implement it. I mean, they say, let's keep it real, right? I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it real 100 all the way. Because the same way these people are out there talking to other Black Americans, you know, creating this rift, creating this hostility. I want to make you aware of what is going on. It is my job also for me to speak to my African brothers and sisters and my Black American brothers and sisters who see similarities rather than the differences. You can fight for your struggle without trying to take us down. You can fight for your struggle without, you know, saying all these negative things about us. If we're going to keep it real, who employs the African immigrants that come here? Let's start there. Hey, the ones that I know, including myself, all our jobs come from white people, white companies. Let's keep it real. You and I both are given jobs by white people. So what do you have to say? I'm not here taking anything from you. The white man is saying he's got plenty of jobs and he's giving it. He said, come and get it. You're doing the same. I'm doing the same. Why are you mad at me? Why? Because I have more ambition than you? It's not a competition. This dream began way before I stepped foot here. I'm using I, but it still represents all of us. Everyone that understands the point I'm trying to make here. This is not just empty talk. I know some people are going to be like, no, I don't want to accept this reality. But all you have to do is go into social media, go to YouTube, Instagram, even Facebook here. Just type in ADOS, ADOS, the hashtag ADOS, and start reading. Start reading. It's laughable. They said Chinese are in Africa, you know, kicking our asses. And they laugh about this. They laugh about it. So to me, it's like Black people in America, they want to be white supremacists, but they know they cannot oppress white people. So they want to focus on oppressing us because they were taught that Africa is a jungle. But that is not true. They were told that Africans are not intelligent, but they themselves are Africans, but they bought into it. Look at the majority of, I don't know about you, but I have dealt with tons and tons of Black people. And it's not always positive. You know, I used to work in a prison. One time there was the only time I heard an inmate say to me, go back to your country. It was from a Black inmate. Black inmate. He's darker than me. Black inmate. So you have to understand the mindset here. It comes from a place of hate, because when you like you were being oppressed, instead of, we're both in the same class. I'm trying to uplift myself. You should be doing the same thing. But you think me going up would, stop you from going up. No, two separate people. You get to do what you want. I get to do what I want. May the best person have what they are looking for. Can you guys hear me? I'll be right back. Huh?
Now we see you.
All right. Is that better? Okay. Oh, sorry about that. But what I was saying is, before something happened to my system here, it's really, really crazy. It's crazy if you think about it. So that's why when we refuse to unite, when we refuse to accept the truth, face our weaknesses, we are always going to be in the bottom. We're always going to be seen as the people in the bottom. So again, this part of it is more like a response to the things that I have been seeing, and people have been too comfortable to just come out here and say negative things about people from the continent of Africa. The people that immigrated here, you didn't bring them here. You didn't bring them here. Just like they didn't bring you here. The people are not against you. just because you're both black. In fact, that should be a welcoming thing. But I'm telling you, a lot of black people in America, now it's showing more online, but a lot of them and don't want you to be here. But forget that, Mexicans and others can come. But if it's left to them, if it's left to them, you from Gambia, you from Nigeria, they say no. Because, they published, I read this article, it's somewhere online. It said the most educated immigrants in the United States are Nigerians. So I heard this guy going like, he's like, in Nigeria, these people are already set up. They have free college. They have all this and that. Even if you're a doctor in Nigeria, when you come here, you have to start fresh. Do you know how many people come from African countries who are full-fledged doctors, or even other countries? They come here, they put themselves through the gruesome hard work to get their residency. They don't come here and become doctors straight. No. Some of these guys, they drive taxis, they do lots of things just to be able to put themselves through school. It's not like any government giving them that. So you come here, you work hard, 3-4 jobs, whatever, to get yourself to that level. Now, you got someone who was born and raised here, who's been here for generations. They should have already been ahead of you. I mean, the ones that are people that are putting in the time, they are already ahead. So they should already be ahead of you, because language is not an issue, the culture is not an issue. Think about it. You are coming to a completely different culture. Sometimes most of us don't even know the history of that culture. So you have to learn language. You have to learn that culture and take yourself through all that hard work. I'm trying to paint a picture for these people, for them to understand this narrative that they are spreading, saying that, it's white people that come and, pick the foreign-born blacks. I'm a foreign-born black, like you said. You said they become Americans just to go against your interests. No. I'm telling you exactly how people do it. Imagine you're a doctor in your country. You come here, they say, you cannot be a doctor here. You have to go back to school. Most of these guys are already even old. They have family, but they go to school. They put themselves through school and become doctors here too, like double doctor. Double. Come on, man. So you want to tell me this person shouldn't get the things they have today because you chose to waste your American citizenship, because that's what I call it. So you're telling me you have been living in America all this time before I ever showed up, right? And then I show up, I go through all these steps. It takes a while. Even you become a citizen, you go to school, you do all that. You are still here. You were already born here. You got everything going on. So how did I surpass you in your own opinion? Because my competition is not you. My competition is me. I can assure you, Africans, like you say, African immigrants are not dependent on the government. Maybe there are some, but majority of the people that I know, they are not. Do you know many African people would rather they come here, you know, we'll bust our asses working 3, 4 jobs. There are some of you that are watching me. You're probably working 3, 4 jobs right now. At least 2 jobs. So obviously, if somebody is spending their time working for money, working to achieve something, obviously they are going to, they are going to do better than you in life. Simple as that. But making up this narrative, it's only creating hate. And I want you to understand this. You know, this is something that the people talk about. You need to know this. You need to know this. So now you see why it's important for all of you to shame, our fellow African brothers and sisters that come to the Western world and stand on the streets begging. Now you see why? This is the reason why. Because there is too much for us here as a people to lose. You have a lot to lose. Your self-dignity. Think about how people talk about you. If you're a dignified person, wherever you come from, you would continue being a dignified human being. But don't give me the bullshit that your, country's economy is bad. That's why you're begging. Are you kidding me? Yeah, you came to a place that you say it's good. And people, this is not only, even you have people, some of you that, like I said, did not teach your kids about the true history of what is happening. Because your kids, even though you're from Nigeria, Senegal, or whatever, these kids are out there online. They are the kids that are saying negative things about Africa because you didn't teach your kids how to be a proud African. If you're listening, this is not a direct attack on any one individual. But if you know you are that person, I mean, if you're not doing it, I think, you should start now. You should start paying attention to these things. I mean, we can focus on constantly talking about the politics in Africa, African countries. So we can talk about that, but I think it's important for us to talk about the place where we are living at. You have to be very aware of your surrounding. You cannot just wake up every day, just walking down the street and you're like, oh, CNN said it. CNN is not telling you everything. Like what I'm saying here, do you think CNN is showing this? But this is real. It's real. There are some people that need to hear this message, but they are stuck on CNN. They're stuck on CNN. So I'll continue bringing you this message as things develop. And in fact, you know what? Let me play an audio here. I want you guys to hear this audio. It's a show from yesterday. I want you to hear this. Give me 1 minute. This is supposed to be the political talk, and it's from a guy called Professor Black Truth. But bear with me, let me play this for you. Actually, I'll do the founder here.
Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks. How's everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks with a quick hit. I just wanted to go over American DOS, ADOS, and explain how it wasn't created by Russians, and these aren't Russian bots. These are our fans, Tone Talks and Breaking Brown fans that have been collaborating, getting together on Black politics for several years. So recently, Joy Reid, Angela Rye, Joy Reid of MSNBC, Angela Rye appears on CNN.
So the two people he's talking about here is Joy Reid and Angela Rye. These are Black people from America. But because their parents, like Angela Rye's parents, are from Haiti. How was Haiti formed? Let's think about what history books said. Oh, now I remember. So Haiti was formed by slaves. They brought African slaves there. But not according to these people. Even though she was born here, these people are trying to take away her citizenship. So now we all know if Black people were in charge, none of us would be citizens here.
And they've been going around saying how a Loyola Law School grad nominated for an Emmy for the documentary Freeway Cracking the System, in which we uncovered the Nicaraguans involved with the Iran-Contra scandal. Go check it out, IMDb. And then also you have Yvette Carnell of Breaking Brown, who worked in Capitol, none other than Cory Booker in his senator campaign. It's one of the crux of his senator campaign. And Yvette Carnell last week interviewed who was.
Sorry, folks. This guy's this section I want to play just came to my head, actually. I don't know if YouTube deleted his video. I hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Because let's see. Oh, there. There it is. Folks, listen to this here.
Dr. John Henrik Clarke talked about the role of a bastard as a factor in world history. Now, when we're talking about bastards, we need to make sure that we're talking about them not merely in a biological sense. That's the most obvious context, but it's not the only one. And certainly when we start talking about the control of people over spaces and time, biology is just a small part of the equation. You also have political bastards and social bastards. And that is exactly the reason why those of us who are the descendants of America's slaves happen to make it clear that we're not trucking with that whole immigration thing. That ain't got a damn thing to do with us. This is going to be a rather hard conversation to have. Not hard in the sense of difficult, but hard in the sense of severe. Now,
so just like you're hearing, he said immigration have nothing to do with them. Great. The immigrants are not asking you to help them. But why, if you're not helping, why even talk about it? Focus on your struggle. Let the immigrants focus on their struggle. Simple as that. But these people are not trying to leave immigrants alone, but listen to more.
Thing I need to say from the outset that I'm going to be making a couple of generalizations. Naturally, this is not meant to say 100%. There's no real such thing as 100% of anything except for 100% dead.
By the way he speaks, I can tell if he really believes that, it's not 100%. Folks, really, you really need to listen to this carefully. Take your time and listen to what he's saying. It's misinformation, but it's a dangerous misinformation.
But this is meant to say that there is an overwhelming majority of individuals, a contingent that we're going to be referring to. I'm going to be making some sweeping generalizations regarding immigration and immigrants in general. And yes, this is going to also include the ones who happen to be African immigrants. We're talking about, when I say African, I'm not meaning simply from the continent. I'm talking about anybody outside the continental United States. This is going to be a hard conversation, but it's one that needs to be had because this is going to be defining the context of all of our conversations. It's going to be defining the discourse going forward. When we talk about hitting the reset button, those of us who are the descendants of America's slaves, hitting the reset button, what that means is we're going to be resetting what everyone should expect from us, because there's a lot of things we've been thinking, a lot of things we've been saying, a lot of things that we've been feeling and knowing to be true, but we haven't been saying it. And we've conditioned people to believe, oh, Black folks, they're just fine with everybody else being allowed to eat off of their contributions.
So you hear what he's saying. If you've never been here or around these people or hear the internet, you wouldn't know this. But it's true. This is how some of majority of these people feel. But listen to more of it. And especially if you live in the States or wanting to come here, you need to know this.
Not. And we need to make that clear. And we're going to start by debunking these would-be Black spokespeople for us, who the white media, because white media is the propaganda arm of white supremacy. You got these mulattoes and these immigrants who are going to be speaking for us. And the mulattoes in many cases are themselves immigrants. So you've basically got one group that is not in the tank for the descendants of America's slaves. And then you've got compounded with another group who are not. That's white supremacy stacking the deck. You've got one group of political and social bastards compounded by another. And that's deliberate. Imagine if you had a group of people who you wanted to get rid of because politically these people are a liability for you. They're on guard against you, however, because you've been attacking them for 500 years straight. I mean, you can't just go in on them and destroy them outright. You'd like to, but you would have to have a politically acceptable reason. And every time you try, whether it's right after the Civil War or the 1960s or before that, just before World War I, and then
so mind you, the group of people he's talking about is the same Africans who were brought here into slavery. And as things keep progressing, you know, for the longest time, African people were not considered citizens of this country. So his anger saying, you know, mulattoes are immigrants and stuff like that, you know, is becoming more and more interesting because majority of the Black population is now mulatto. So does that mean they're immigrants too?
Words. Or what we've been going through now with this latest race war. Every time that they try it, is we're finally going to finish those niggers off. Well, it doesn't go according to plan, and the rest of the world looks and goes, you white supremacists in the United States, you're just a bunch of savages, so it becomes a problem. So what you need is you need to strangle this target group over time. Hey, you're willing to wait. You got all this luxury, you got all these resources stockpiled, so you can afford to wait for the payoff. But you also need to make it look like you didn't do it. So you bring in some other group of people, or better yet, group of peoples, multiple groups of people, so that you can say, well, can you really? It's not like we brought in one specific group to do them in. Why just all these other, you know, if these guys were really so aggrieved, how come these other groups aren't having those problems while you're busy floating loans to these immigrants, while you're busy giving them grants?
So this is the idea that flows around there, that immigrants are being given loans and grants. I wish this were true. Seriously. I wish this were true. If this were true, I would be at the bank getting a loan. But it is not true. Why do you think immigrants work so many jobs? Because nobody's giving them a handout or loans. They come up with their own money. They come up with their own money and businesses. And besides, America is a capitalist country. A capitalist country that just hands out loans, that's not true. It's not real.
And you also make sure that you're picking people who already had a good education in their home country so that they show up, hit the ground running because they had all of these advantages from the jump. Meanwhile, Black people, on the other hand, are subjected to a relentless, never-ending, hyper-aggressive deprivation of resources, attacked across the board. The infrastructure is weaponized. The economy is weaponized. The law is weaponized against them. Oh, you got somebody who's descended from America's slaves? Well, these guys are a problem. On the other hand, you got some biracial chump with a Kenyan father who didn't even stick around. Well, he's all right. Because, you know, we know that he's not going to be holding a grudge about that whole slavery thing.
So he's implying that Barack Obama holds a grudge over slavery. But why? He was never a slave. His father is from Kenya. Kenyans were not part of the transatlantic slave trade. So what is he trying to say? So the whole thing, you know, because sometimes people might sound passionate and, you know, well structured, but that doesn't mean what they are saying makes sense. You have to listen carefully to what the individual is saying.
It's a political operation. These immigrants being brought in, particularly the foreign-born Black immigrants being brought in, these guys are part of that political plan.
So he's saying that Black people like myself who were born in Africa, you and everybody else, we are brought here as part of a plan. I wish I knew about this plan, but I don't. But this is great.
Wish to admit to that or not. And while not every single one of them's on board with it, let's be bluntly honest here. Most of them are. And no, you are not going to tell me that I need to go ahead and sift through every single one. This is not me necessarily making some unjust generalization. That's pattern recognition, because we've been seeing it across the board, not just in the Deep South, not just in the Midwest, not just in the East Coast, not just the West Coast, but it's been across the board. Now, much of that has been because white supremacy gets to vet whoever they let in. So they make sure you got on the tap dance shoes, and that you make sure you got an empty plate so you're advertising, I am looking for butter biscuits.
That's funny, actually. But so what he's saying here is white people, before they allow you to come to America, they make sure you got your tap dancing shoes on, meaning, you know, your shoes that you put on to kiss white people's ass. But these are the type of things these people really, they say these things every night. It seems like every night. You know how Black people here complain and say the 6 o'clock news is about negativity about Black people? Nowadays, go on the internet. This is their comments about any Black immigrant, including Caribbeans.
That dance for butter biscuits. Okay, we get that. But another part of it happens to be there are some inherent issues that some of these foreign-born Blacks have before they even show up. A little bit of insecurity, a little bit of, dare I say it, inferiority complex. Because if you look at who has defined what the global consciousness thinks of as Black for the last 150 years, it's been just one group of people. The descendants of America's slaves. That's who it is.
That's actually not true, but we'll keep going.
It's nobody else. Name for me one Afro-Brazilian of note. Yeah, Brazil's got more.
Pele. Pele is an Afro-Brazilian. Just because you don't know about Pele, there are over 1 billion people that know who Pele is. So this is the type of things I'm talking about. Black Americans, they want to take up this fight aggressively against their fellow Black African immigrants and Caribbean immigrants, trying to paint this distorted narrative, but they are tripping all over themselves. So you say, name one Afro-Brazilian who's done something great and everybody knows. Like I said, Pele, the king of soccer. We all know who he is. Just because you don't know him doesn't mean that he doesn't exist.
People than anywhere else outside of Africa, but name them for me. And yes, there are plenty of Africans who are in India, but can you name any for me? Can you give me any names? And when it comes to Africa itself, basically you only know Nelson Mandela. That's it.
No, you only know Nelson Mandela. There are tons of African heroes who have taken up arms, against the struggle of oppression that was brought onto their country by Europeans. I can start counting, but it would take us all day. So just because you know Nelson Mandela alone does not necessarily make that true.
If you're an African scholar who actually looks at history, you might be able to name Haile Selassie and a couple others, but let's be honest here. The ones that you're naming are dead. And many of them, the last time anybody mentioned them was like 100 years ago. Can you name something?
That's actually not true, but folks, you see exactly what I was trying to tell you. You see how dangerous this is? So I don't want this to be a normal thing where people think they can just come out here and say disgusting things like this about Africans without us responding. You might not see it as a big deal, but notice there are thousands and thousands of people that are listening to this audio. They're leaving comments. And it keeps going on and on and on. And eventually, this hate is going to build up and turn into action. Why do you think so many, like especially in the ghettos, why do you think you meet Black people who are more hostile to you as a Black immigrant? Now you know why.
It's more recent. This is something that bothers them because as far as they're concerned, for a lot of them especially, there's something that immigrants in particular have. Part of the reason that they have trouble letting go of whatever their home culture is because it's pride.
So he thinks that, like they think everybody, immigrants were just sitting there going like, we're so jealous of Black people in America, our home pride. Our culture is so inferior. We can't let go of it. No, dumbass. That's not what it is. Our culture is fine. That's why we're holding on to it. That's why we're holding on to it. Just because you are not proud of who you are doesn't mean we wouldn't be proud of who we are. Yeah, our homeland doesn't look like America. We're okay with that. Russia doesn't look like America either. So there is tons of Russians here. So why is it a problem for only Africans? I mean, I would say their problem is against Africans. Listen more.
To admit that the places that they came from are essentially failures. If they weren't failures, you wouldn't have left. Or they have to admit that there was a failure of citizenship, a failure of character on their part. Otherwise, they would have stayed and said, no matter the odds, no matter the hardship, I'm going to build this place up. But they didn't do that.
Actually, yeah, we do talk about, we admit where we failed at, we talk about the corruption, we discuss these things amongst us. But yeah, sometimes the debates get heated, but that doesn't necessarily mean we hate our homeland. And it's not everybody, not all the people have left home. Even those of us that left, we're still contributing in building our home back there. So this is crazy.
They decided to leave. Now, I'm not going to knock them for the leaving part. At the end of the day, people leave for a multitude of reasons. But if you had to leave the place that you were at and you didn't decide to dig in your heels, that means your roots weren't so deep. Be honest about that part. It also means that you didn't think of home as being worth building up. Be honest about that. Okay.
So these guys, their idea about Africa is the 18th century Africa that white people told them. So they still read these books, the all fake history. They don't know nothing about African countries. Only they see videos now and again. So it is very sad to think about it, like in this day and age of information, living in the United States, a place where you have access to information. So he's saying that people, foreign born blacks in, let's say, Africa, Caribbean, they make sure those people have good education before they come here. Do you know how hard it is to acquire education in these places? You live in a country where, you know, you can go to school up to high school for free, even college for many. How many colleges are in the United States alone? When I was where I came from, there is only one college. When I left, only one college. How many people can go there? You have to pay for tuition from 7th grade to 12th grade. The free education government is liable for is from 1st grade to 6th grade. But we still make it work. So it's not easy for people in other places as you are trying to paint it, right? But this is all a fight, according to them, for their struggle and liberation, which shouldn't have anything to do with you and I, but not according to him.
You decided you wanted to switch teams because the team that you were on apparently wasn't winning fast enough for your taste. But when you show up somewhere else, you decide that you're going to dump on the individuals who are there in this new place that you're at, especially the individuals who happen to pave the road that you're walking, then that is a problem. We go beyond a mere failure of character. We go to somebody who is a failure as a human being. White supremacy has made it their MO to import in all sorts of people who are going to flood the descendants of slaves. And this gives you cover to say, well, these black people no longer matter. That was a big deal 15 years ago when the white media started saying that Hispanics have surpassed African Americans.
So it's like the war in his mind is like all over the place. So anybody, it seems like, if they have an accent or they have a home country, then they are mad at them. This is a movement, ladies and gentlemen. You must know this. I'm just playing this one guy, but this is a movement. Pretty much now, it seems like every black loser with access to the camera is talking about this. So they don't know where to turn to. So the anger is towards you and I. He talks about Hispanics in passing, but the real anger is towards you and I.
Population. That was them saying, well, basically, we're advertising to you black people that anything you have to say isn't important, as if they were tripping all over their shoelaces for us in the first place. But we see how long that lasted. We see how long black people remained irrelevant. The white media was celebrating, basically saying, now we don't have to hear anything you descendants of slaves have to say. Yeah, we see how that worked out. Ain't nobody heard from us very much lately, have they? What they meant to say was that the truths that black people have been saying, the truth that we represent no longer matters. And they have a phalanx of bought and paid for bootlicks and professional white ass kissers. Roland, Reed, and Rye are just 3 of them. But you got these clowns, and all of them have very recent immigrant roots. People like Issa Rae, very recent immigrant roots. That is no coincidence. White supremacy chose them for a reason. And
Issa Rae was born in the United States, by the way. Her parents are from Senegal. So you hear the contempt here. Like I said, if you're born in the United States, you become a citizen right away. She was born and raised in the United States, but these people don't want to even recognize her citizenship because of her parents are from Senegal. Even white racists, even your super deep white racists, doesn't think this way. But this is what is coming from that camp.
Even the ones like Angela Rye are mulattoes, but the truth of the matter is, as far as she's concerned, she ain't like the black folks in the United States, not the ones descended from American slaves. She ain't like them. She's smarter than them.
So this Angela Rye, he's saying she's a mulatto. Isn't majority of black people in America mulattoes? So now he's saying the mulattoes are not from the United States. So let's find out where these mulattoes came from.
And them. That's the way that she sees it. And it's her job to lead these poor, ignorant folks. After all, they're just a bunch of barefoot, washfoot bastards who just walked off a sharecropper's farm yesterday. That's how Angela Rye sees things. And that's how Roly-Poly with his Haitian behind sees things. And that's how Joy Reid with her Jamaican God knows what ancestor sees things. That's how they see things. That's how they see us. They wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for us. They damn sure wouldn't have their positions if it wasn't for us. Even if the white media wasn't a digital clavern, these clowns are only in their position because white media needs them to try to lie to us. So they wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for us, no matter how you look at it. Angela Rye wouldn't have a damn thing if it.
So by the way, all the people that he's talking about, these Americans born and raised, born and raised. Roland Martin, he's saying he's Haitian. No. Maybe his great-grandfather, they're from Haiti. Like I said, Haiti was a slave colony too. Joy Reid, Jamaican, slave colony. But look at the way these people think. So when someone starts thinking like this, it becomes dangerous. It comes from a place of fear. A place of fear. And that fear, is being transposed onto everyone. Watch how great this fear spreads.
Been for Amber Phillips deciding to run her mouth. And yet look what their reaction has been, this hostility. Angela Rye took it upon herself to say that she can't understand why it is that black folks don't understand that all black folks are immigrants. No white politician would ever say that. You can't think of any white politician who's ever said that, can you? There hasn't even been a Democrat who's tried to say that. Hell, you haven't even had any of these fuzzy-headed liberals who have tried to say that. So you don't have any liberals saying it. You don't have any Democrats saying it. You don't have any left-wingers saying it, but Angela Rye said that. Now, you know that she's nothing more than a sock puppet with with the left-wing white supremacist hands up her.
So if your opinion is different from theirs, you have to be a white ass kisser, a bootleg, a non-American.
Only behind, you know that. She just says what they want her to say. So those words came from them, didn't come from her. She ain't got a thought in that empty head of hers. I wouldn't give her that much credit. So she's saying what her white handlers want her to say, which is black people need to get behind this immigration thing. Yeah, let's prioritize everyone else's interests except ours. That's what it is. We have to balance the taken with the given. And that's what we're going to do on this immigration thing. Oh, what do you think about immigration? Well, I support immigration to the extent that the immigrants have supported us. I see a lot that they've taken from us. I see a lot how they've benefited from us. But when I look to see what it is that we've gotten in return, nothing. Oh, I see how they insult us. That I definitely see. But when I look to see how it is where they show respect, not at all. Oh,
so everything I have cruised YouTube, I've cruised social media, I haven't found videos of black immigrants to the United States from Africa, Caribbean, or wherever insulting black Americans. In fact, majority of the people that immigrate here embrace the blackness. There are some who are very indifferent. There are some who have attitude, But the attitude comes from this, where you are not welcome. So, I mean, people are going to be different in their thinking, but they see that as, you just hate them. Like if you want to continue, if you say you're Nigerian, then you hate black people here.
When white supremacy's got its foot up their behinds, then all of a sudden they're trying to figure out how to swing off of our coattails. Then all of a sudden they're trying to get white supremacy off of them. We have been protecting these immigrants for the longest time. Amadou Diallo was not one of us, but we stuck up for him.
See, Amadou Diallo was a Guinean that was shot like 49 times in New York. So he's saying it's not one of us. I mean, he's black, just like you. The reason why black people stood up, because you know what happened to Amadou Diallo, if it goes without black people speaking for it, you know exactly what happened to him could happen to you. You know this. So this self-delusional, narrative is laughable and dangerous at the same time. This idea that you're over here protecting immigrants, what do you mean? How can you can't even protect yourself? How can you protect immigrants? What is immigrants taking from you? You're not employing them. They're not seeking employment from you. So what are they taking? What do they need to give back? So these people need to be challenged when they come up with idiotic comments like this.
Abner Louima was not one of us, but we stuck up for him. Patrick Dorismond was not one of us, but we stuck up for him. Akai Gurley was not one of us, but we stuck up for him. There's a number of these guys, these foreign-born blacks or these recent immigrants, first or second generation, who have been wronged by white supremacy, and those of us who were the descendants of slaves, we stuck up for them. The children of America's slaves stuck up for them. But how many times have they returned the favor? Let's just be honest here, because we can't change the situation until we first admit that there's a situation that requires changing. Now, all this stuff about trying to flood the descendants of slaves with as many pliable, flexible, obedient immigrants as possible, this plan's been in the offing for over a century. Marcus Garvey talked about it. The flood of European migrants at the turn of the 20th century, it wasn't because American manufacturing needed labor. They had plenty of labor. It was because the white population needed to import some reinforcements. Black numbers as a percentage were on the rise. The white numbers were in decline. And this was before World War.
So you see how he tripped all over himself? Marcus Garvey was Jamaican. Marcus Garvey started one of the largest pan-African movement, that we all know about today, right here in the United States, the most powerful one. Put up his money, came up with the idea. He's from Jamaica. But now he's trying to use Marcus Garvey's words, saying that white people brought in other white people from Europe to reinforce them. Wouldn't it make sense to bring Africans to reinforce black population if we really go by his logic? But when you're filled with hate and fear, things that you say, they don't have to make sense. You would say them regardless. They don't really have to make sense to you. But what you fail to understand also, there are thinking people who would listen and listen carefully to what you're saying. It doesn't make sense, but yet he still keeps saying this every single broadcast.
Now, what we're doing as the black people who are descended from slaves, we're instituting a political litmus test. And it is one meant to benefit us because everybody else has been eating off of us and benefiting from us, and they have not been returning the favor. So what's happening is, yes, there is indeed a hardening, a coarsening of our standpoint toward everyone else because we've given them every chance that there is. For over 130 years, we've been waiting to see if these immigrants were going to return our kindness, going to return our support. We have always recognized the humanity of all. Not a damn one of them has recognized ours. Everybody thinks that we're supposed to be their rhetorical and physical punching bags. And these other groups, they're only too happy to try to get some crumbs off of white supremacy's table by playing the game of, oh, we know what it is. There's a racial pecking order, a racial hierarchy, and we're going to help you. We're going to help white supremacy to maintain it. Not all of them have been on board with the bull jive, but the problem is most of them have. Upwards of 90%. I can count on one hand the numbers who have not. And I said it.
So you notice the way he's talking. He says, we've extended our hand to immigrants. He's not telling you what they did for immigrants. He said last 150 years. Black people were not immigrating to the United States like that 150 years ago. It was a hostile territory for Black people. Period. I mean, 150 years ago, Black people were damn near still in slavery, even though they abolished it. But Black people were not free in this country until the 1960s, which is funny, coincided with African nations gaining their independence. Do you see the connection here? Black people being free in America or in the Caribbean, in other places, it cannot go without Africa being completely free, because that's where you come from. You might deny it, but the people you're trying to convince know where you come from. They know who you are. Even if you keep denying it, you can label us whatever you want, bootlicks, coons, whatever. But the fact remains that us, we're no different than a Russian immigrant, an Indian immigrant, any other immigrant that comes to America for the pursuit of happiness. So your gripe about it, I don't really quite follow.
We're going to put in place a political litmus test, one meant to benefit those of us who are the descendants of slaves. And no, you don't get to grandfather clause yourself in. While there do happen to be brothers and sisters from the Caribbean who I respect, those from South America who I respect, those in India and the motherland who I respect, when we start talking about the path that we made and the bricks that we laid here in the hells of North America, sorry, but that don't include the Jamaicans, Haitians, and all the others. Sorry, but that don't include you.
So Jamaicans were slaves. The entire island, there was slavery there. So you are saying that you don't want to empathize with other people for enduring the same thing that you've endured, or even worse. But you want other people to empathize and feel sympathy for you. Do you see how crazy this logic is? So Jamaicans, the slavery that Jamaicans face, or people from Haiti or Brazil, that slavery was not, that wasn't slavery enough. This is what he is implying. These people are delusional. These people are suffering from what they call self grandiosity. That's what they are suffering from. They think the world revolves around them. I mean, if you want to fight for reparation, hey, by all means, go for it. Nobody's stopping you. I support reparation. In fact, you guys have heard me talk about it. I'm not saying give me reparation. I think, the descendants of slaves in the Caribbean, in America, everywhere, I think they should receive reparation. And if you're talking about Africans don't want you to receive reparation, that's the biggest bull jive I've ever heard. I don't know many Africans who would not support reparation for Black people in America. I don't know that many. I doubt if I know any. So this idea here, this hate, is ridiculous.
There are very few of you who can say that it does. Most of you, it don't. America was doing everything it could to keep the vast majority of you out. Most of you only showed up in the last 50 years or so. This ain't about trying to spare your feelings. We need a righteous dose of just hard.
So you notice how he's talking as if he's separating himself as an African. So it was the same Africans immigrating, you know, in chains, put into slavery, forcing them, not immigrating, but being taken into slavery. So what do you mean they were not coming? No, the Africans were here. They were slaves. You came from them. So what do you mean, oh, these people were not coming? No, that's how you came into existence.
Truth here so we can get this thing straight. How do we separate the people who actually want Black empowerment from those who white supremacy sent to mislead us, who white supremacy is hoping are going to dilute our political and social potency, who think that they're going to derange our internal politics? Well, first of all, what we're not going to do is we're not going to argue. We're not going to get into long, drawn-out discussions with anyone. We're just going to tell them that we're pursuing a Black first agenda. That's all we got to do. And that we're going to be politically selfish. We've earned the right to be. And at this point, it is a prerogative for our survival that we be politically selfish. We've tried everything.
You notice how this message that he's delivering, this should be delivered to white people, because white people have all the political power here. Last time I checked, the president was an immigrant. The people in Congress, there might be immigrants, but you know, it's very few of them. So telling us how angry you are, what good is that going to do? Since we're talking about interest, don't you think, myself as an American, just like you are telling yourself you have the choice to vote for somebody that's going to promote your interest, don't you think I have the same right to do that? Whether you see me as coming from Africa, whatever, the law is the law. The law allows me to vote. So whether you agree with the direction I vote in or not, I'm looking at what works in my interest too. Why should I, as an immigrant, for instance, vote for a group whose ideology is anti-immigrant? Why? What if I want my family and friends to come over here? You would be against that. You see? What about our brothers and sisters who are still, you know, in limbo about their immigration stuff? That means you are against that. You would, you know, you're willing to take everything from these people and get them deported because you are angry. You are making up stuff as if we were the ones that enslaved you. We were the same people getting enslaved. Do you understand that? If any of us, Black, if you had stepped foot here 150 years ago, or even today, the way I'm treated is not, and if we go to the around KKKs, you think they're going to treat me any different than him? No. So these people are delusional. He talked about low self-esteem. Who's suffering from low self-esteem? It sounds like him. He's the one that's taking the time to insult himself, to say Africans have low self-esteem. You're talking about yourself.
Can to decide that we're going to be the most altruistic people on earth, and the only thing that it's done is it's put us at the point where we're on life support now. And a lot of all these folks who've been eating off of us, benefiting from our struggles when they put nothing in the kitty and haven't lifted their damn finger, but they're showing up to try to walk off with the goods Forget it. The days of us deciding that we're going to make ourselves into sacrifices on the altar of showing everybody else how humanely we can treat them when they treat us like dogs, those days are done now. So you're going to be finding a very different group of the descendants of slaves. These people who have...
Last time I checked, it wasn't African cops out there shooting Black people down. Last time I checked, this was happening to Africans. Okay? All this brutality that you're talking about was, still continues to happen to African. Look around the internet. Look around the internet. Last time I checked, I haven't seen videos of an African, like I said, insulting Black Americans. But go Google, just go on YouTube. You wouldn't even have to go far to see videos of Black people from this country insulting Africa in general. Africans in general, because they think Africa is a country. Despite slavery was just in, like I said, West Africa, mostly centered around Gold Coast, Nigeria area, Angola, from West Africa. But they still want to put a claim all on the entire continent. For instance, we're all from a location. Like, I'm from a location. Like, if you ask me where you're from, I can't just be like, oh, I'm from all over Africa. No, I'm from a particular location. And the place is called Gambia. You're from someplace else. Gambia is different from, Nigeria or even Senegal, where it's at. It's different. So how do you come up with this idea that people from Africa in general are over here to step on your progress?
Trying to be everybody's buddies, all of a sudden you're going to find that we're going in the opposite direction. And I don't give a damn if you say, well, now it's an overcorrection. So the hell what? That's okay. We'll sort that out later. Much, much, much later. Say 150 years from now. Come back and talk to me in 150 years, and then we can talk about correcting the overcorrection. But we're not looking to make any alliances. In fact, we're looking to keep people at arm's length. Talk about what will be done to uplift those Black people who came out of American slavery. In other words, the vast majority of Black people in the U.S. And you'll find that the conversation is like truth serum. You want to find out where these so-called migrants really stand? Start talking about things for the descendants of slaves. Go ahead and start talking about things that are going to benefit us. And right immediately, they'll tell you exactly where they stand. Go to a politician and start talking about what.
And where we stand is when you start talking about things for the descendants of slaves, our stance is they should receive reparation. Like I said, many, many Africans, people that immigrated here, would support that. In fact, there is African countries at the UN. For many, many years, they've been, fighting for reparation. You can actually look this up. It's documented. Even Gambia has an envoy, part of that team. I don't know if it's still going on, but this is a thing that, African countries bring up all the time for you and everybody else. They are not saying give the reparation to the African countries. No, it's for you, but not according to them.
Be done for those Black people who are the descendants of slaves? What's going to be done for us? Those of us whose ancestors came out of the slavery experience. What's going to be done for us?
That would include Jamaicans, Brazilians, people from Haiti, the people that you're trying to cut out. It would include them too.
All of a sudden, they'll be telling you, Cory Booker, he's sitting here talking about, well, it's about everyone. Sounds just like Kamala Harris. So you see, you got your two multiracial candidates, and they sound exactly the same. Cory Booker saw what happened to Kamala Harris, and I guess he's figuring to himself, well, they're going to jump on her, and I'll be able to sneak by. After all, I don't have her baggage. I don't have her injustice record. And you can't say that I'm the descendant of immigrants. Oh, I got a couple of slaves in my family tree. Can't tell by listening. Well, what's going to be done with Cory Booker is,
You know what's funny about this is this guy speaks as if they're the ones that have the power to dictate who is and who is black and who's not, who gets to be, American and who's not. I mean, I can definitely sleep good at night knowing that, thank God, these people are not the ones in charge of who gets to be an American or not. You could sleep at night comfortably, but don't think that you won't encounter these people. You will encounter people like him and their disciples out and about. And I want you to be mentally ready to deal with this. I don't want you to be walking out there blindly thinking that, oh yeah, these people love me because I'm from Africa. No. You can hear this.
just going to make sure that everything that he says is remembered and that we hang it around his neck and don't allow him to run away from it. Just like we're not allowing Kamala Harris to run away from her reprehensible injustice record, we're not going to let Cory Booker.
So their anger is towards a politician. So Kamala Harris, because they said her father is from Jamaica and he's like Indian. She's mixed, but she's American. But now all of a sudden, that is a problem. Even though the laws of this country, the constitution of this country says she's a citizen of this country. Born and raised, by the way, educated culturally, everything. I mean, you don't have to like her policy. Of course, yeah, you can scrutinize her. But what this guy is talking about, this is actually against the laws of the United States. It's called discrimination, discriminating against somebody because of their national origin. If a white person, the same things that he's saying, if a white person says that, if they had a job somewhere, they would lose their job. They will be called a racist. They will be doxxed, meaning their information would be put out. They would be hanged. Pretty much their life career would be over. I'm talking about if a white person says the same exact thing about Africans as he is doing.
Run away from all of this tap dancing and weaving and bobbing and dodging that he's doing as far as what's going to be by doing right in regards to us. He's not going to do right by us. That's fine. We're going to make sure he doesn't forget. So when he goes to AIPAC, we're going to tell him, you tell the Jews that, well, I'm here about everybody. I'm not here just for, I'm not representing one group. This is about everybody. When you go stand in front of AIPAC, you tell them.
See, he really, he thinks that there is way more black people because he probably lives in the South. No, think about it. There is tons of states like you can go to. You would not find a single black person. Trust me, I have been to these places. There are places you even in your state, wherever you are, mostly black people are concentrated in small areas. So if you're saying you don't need any political alliance, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So then you shouldn't be worried about what a black immigrant who became a citizen does with their vote. You don't have to worry about that because you said you don't need their alliance. So this man that is speaking, for example, if he's a politician or whoever he's backing, so not voting for them, is it based on logic or because they are not black or because they are black? Because if you and I, we vote against what they stand for, oh, guess what? We're going to be white ass kissers But they're clearly saying they are against people like you and I. It's clear. So it would be stupid for us to vote against our own interests. So that's why, brothers and sisters, those of you that have votes, don't allow any idiot to shame you into following their, whatever they're preaching out there. Vote for whoever you think stands for your ideals. Politics is about interest. It's about interest. Even if you think Donald Trump, his system works for you, vote for him. You have your reasons. Nobody can be 100% bad or 100% good. You take the good and the bad. You shift through, you go with the things that work for you. Okay? There is no one out there, a politician especially, who is 100% good or 100% bad. Remember that. So if this guy's coming out here calling you and I chumps, because he doesn't understand us, he doesn't even need the time to understand you. All he's seeing is you are black, so you have to think like him. If you don't think like him, then you're no longer black. And it is just, people are tired of this idiotic thing. Like having this conversation with black people in America, telling you that you are not black, trying to shame you, talking about, I'm going to take your black card away. Hey, keep it. If you're the one that delivering black cards, you can keep mine too, if you like. It's stupid. Just because you say I'm not black, do you think all of a sudden I'm going to think I'm not? So when you meet these people, don't waste your time. Do not waste your time engaging in this dumb conversation. Do not let them make you believe that all white people are evil. You have your own mind. You have your own brain. Assess situations. You know what's best for you. You know what works for you. There is good and bad people everywhere. Okay? The wars that people run away from in some African countries is fought by Africans. Does that mean everybody in that country is evil and terrible? No. There are people running away from the wars, by the way. There are people getting killed. So not everybody is in that country is wicked. So when people just try to sum these things up and make it simple and package it in their own way, it's dangerous. It's dangerous and misleading. So you as an individual, you should take it upon yourself to take charge of your own life. Take charge of your own life. And be proud of who you are, where you come from. This guy obviously sounds like he's not very proud of who you are, who he is. So because he's ashamed of who he is, he wants to shame everybody who talks about their homeland. You and I are not the only ones that talk about our homeland in Africa. And what is wrong with that? What is wrong with somebody embracing who they are, loving who you are? This nation, America, like I said, is the nation of immigrants. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. I don't have time to live in the past. The past is just a lesson for me. Today, like right now, and the future is what I look at. I can't change the past. I can only learn from it. What's happened in the past has already happened. We can sit here and try to blame other people for what happened in the past, but you weren't there. I wasn't there. It is very easy to just, even myself at times, I have engaged in that before, where you would say, oh man, the people that were taken into slavery, weak people, or what happened historically, we talk bad about it, or try to translated in the way we see it. No, just because you see me, I'm black, just like you, doesn't mean we think alike. Doesn't mean we like the same thing. Doesn't mean we come from the same cultures. And that's okay. That's okay. Our differences is what makes the world a better place. It's what makes the world a unique place. But this hostility, this rah, rah, rah thing, now this is the reason why you say Africans, Africans, you see why. This is why majority do not associate with you. You think someone who came to America to pursue their dream have time to be around dangerous things like this? Dangerous people who are squandering their American dream. Let's be honest. Do you have the time to be around people like that? People who are squandering their American dream. You don't have the time to be around that. But there's no doubt in my mind that if these guys are presenting their case instead of in a positive light to try to convince people to support their political movement without being hostile, they would get a lot of support. A lot of support. But you cannot insult someone and be hostile to this person and say they have to support you. I don't have to. Because supporting you is not good for me. Why would I give you the support for you, to take me down? That's stupid. Nobody does that. You best believe if Donald Trump, if he come up with a policy right now that favors me a whole lot more than 50%, 2020, he gets my vote. No questions asked. Oh, you could be like, oh, I can't believe you would vote for these racist. I mean, what politician isn't in America? Tell me. What politician isn't? So if you're choosing your races, choose your races carefully. That's all I can tell you.
As far as foreign aid goes, and that $38 billion in defense spending that's going to be given to them, tell them, well, it's about everybody. Why do you keep talking about this Jewish state? It's about everybody. Go ahead and do that. And when the gays come up to you, tell them the exact same thing. And when the Latinos and the immigrants come up to you, go ahead and tell them the same thing. It's about everybody. Because if you start talking to them about specifics, then I'm going to be asking you, well, whatever happened to it ain't about everybody. Make sure that he knows that. He's a political liar. We're going to brand him as one. And we're going to.
So what he doesn't understand is what really, if you want politicians, if you want to get their attention, you have to come up with money. You have to fund their campaign. You have to donate to them. But you think you can come out on the internet and shame them into doing what you want them to do? All these groups you're talking about, the gays, the immigrant groups, whatever you're talking about, they do donate tons of money to these politicians. So therefore, they go to work for them. I don't have to worry about no immigration things. Like I said, I'm a citizen of this country. But does that mean I don't understand a new immigrant's plight in this country, or somebody living in this country with no proper documentation, living in fear? Do you think I don't understand that? I do. I have friends that go through that. I know people that, go through that. These are good people. They are not criminals. They are working hard every single day to better themselves. And they are, like I said, they've built a life for themselves. So you're telling me because you did not take the time to do the things that you need to do for yourself, now this person shouldn't be fighting fighting for what is blocking them. Come on, that doesn't make sense.
Him enough rope to hang himself with. He thinks that he's going to pull a slick one, and he won't. We're going to make it where the conversation is dominated, not merely that we're a factor, or we're going to make it sure that the conversation's dominated by what the descendants of slaves are going to get. And what you'll find is the bootlicks and everybody who's been trying to perpetrate a fraud and talking around our interests, they're going to start getting real scared. Now, here's a homework assignment that I'm going to start banging the drum on in the following weeks and months. We need to make sure we compile a list of what the campaign appearances of Kamala Harris are going to be. Her in particular, because the white.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to stop here and maybe finish it from where I left off, maybe sometime tomorrow. But thank you for joining me in listening to the information here. I know there's a lot of information that I put in this video, but take the time, listen to it. Do not jump to conclusion. Think hard about what is being said, what is being described, and ask yourself, what is your interest? It is time to get real serious, brothers and sisters. It is time to get real serious. I know you and I and everybody, we didn't leave our homeland to engage in nonsense. So there is no need for somebody to bring their nonsense our way. So, brothers and sisters, keep your head high. Don't let anybody tell you you're less than. Keep it African, keep it black, keep it classy. That's the only way forward. Thank you.